Hi. Today is Thanksgiving Thursday. Every Thursday is Thanksgiving, and I give thanks that I don't let the enemy determine my path. Just now, the people that run through this alleyway running over my lawn purposely turned over the stone planters I placed there. And like I noticed that the individuals do stuff, I guess because they think I'm going to be like I was 4 or 5 years ago when everybody knew that the barn people were stealing my electricity. They think I'm gonna run out. Oh my God! Why are you running over my planter? Why are you such an ignorant fool? No, I know who you are. God handles my battles. You get that? I'm going to read on this day that is not my cooling board. Today was not my cooling board. Today I did have graduations to think about and thumbnails, and for that I'm grateful. Okay, I'm going to read. I don't think I've read this part before. I'm going to read about the Easter parade and how Leslie is so attached and bonded to her grandparents who've been married for decades and love each other. And I guess it because I was thinking about my grandparents who were both preachers. My grandmother was a preacher, my grandfather was a preacher in Mississippi. So my mother is was a double PK, sorry, oatmeal. Oh, that's another trick. Since I know what my schedule should be when I first get up, number one, pray. Number two, hydrate with water, not coffee. Number three, eat oatmeal. That has changed everything, and I thank God for that discretion, and I give Him all the honor, all the glory, and all the praise. Whereas a year before, I would let outside enemies, frenemies, fools disrupt my day. No longer. Okay, I lost my page. Here it is. Okay. Oh, here it is. The final preparation for the Easter parade starts before dawn in the Black communities, even if they're not attending a sunrise service. I think they still have sunrise services. I know I've been to one. My mother's church would have them. Mothers of families are already up way before dawn, pressing clothes and matching frilly pink socks while boiling eggs for dyeing. Breakfasts of spring hams and eggs with a holiday brown and serve rolls. Ooh, those sound good. Are, are covered with clean dish towels on the stove. Leslie's enjoyment of this holy day included being at her grandparents' home getting ready for sunrise services. Her mother's parents were of that handful of Christians who believed that getting out of bed before 4 o'clock on Easter morning was a Southern ritual of vast importance. The smell of sizzling bacon and sausage, the sight of her grandmother in her flowered housecoat with the big front pockets, and the sound of her grandfather's transistor radio next to him sitting in the big picture window was cozy and comforting as a memory. The hustle and bustle of her grandmother was amazingly brisk and purposeful for this early in the day. First, attending to food in the oven and eggs boiling on top of the stove, she quickly removed the golden buns on the verge of burning. She moved them into the dining room to complete the last minute ironing of creasing and pressing the pink, yellow, and blue apparel while commanding her granddaughter to lay out her matching socks, ribbons, petticoats, and to find the other patent leather shoe for today. She cautioned not the black shoes, but the white patent leather ones, since Easter unofficially heralds spring's arrival in the black community. The opening and closing of the icebox caused her to pull at her slip strap under her robe and straightening up, placed another carton of eggs on the kitchen table. Her grandmother's violin solo was the highlight of every Easter Sunday, and she drank a cup of coffee down before picking up her instrument for fine tuning. Leslie stood next to her as her fingers nimbly adjusted the strings, as was her traditional song. Leslie, when permitted to stay overnight, okay, that was wrong. Leslie stood next to her as her fingers nimbly adjusted the strings, and as was Leslie's traditional ritual when she was permitted to stay overnight to turn the pages as her grandmother projected the winsome melancholic notes that floated through the flat. Her worn housecoat and pink foam rubbers peeking from under the silk scarf painted a pastoral scene reminiscent of a Rembrandt in the Art Institute. Her grandfather was a minister from the South whose seminary training and semi retirement kept his agenda filled traveling from one church to another. He was of a cheerful disposition, and even before daylight, he was jovially bantering with his wife while putting finishing touches on his sermon for the day. Not only was he sought out within the city, but also the surrounding suburbs and nearby states. It was not unusual for Leslie's grandparents to be on the road on a Sunday morning driving to an 11 o'clock service. His favorite spot for editing and proofreading his sermon outlines was smack in the middle of the picture window in her living room. The minister pored over his notes, inattentive that the light was dim. Okay, and just as an aside, what just happened this morning was one of the reasons I began to tell my narrative on YouTube, because I know the urban tradition of bullying people, which leads to way more than that, is something that's so easily accepted and done when you don't want to be a part of the culture of corruption. I'll just leave it at that. And basically, for me, I already know what they want. They want to do something so egregious that my son comes rushing back here. No, not happening. Or like I used to do, open the door, looking at what they're doing, and then expecting them to correct it or have common sense. Probably like my mother did when the barn people were bullying her. No, I don't expect you to have common sense. So Do you? Is it common sense for people to get constantly shot and killed over here? No. Why would I expect you to have common sense? That's why the neighborhoods look the way they look. Not only was he sought out within the city, but also the surrounding suburbs and nearby states. It was not unusual for Leslie's grandparents to be on the road on a Sunday morning driving to an 11 o'clock service. His favorite spot for editing and proofreading his sermon outlines was smack in the middle of the picture window in their living room. The minister pored over his notes, inattentive that the light was dim. His wife shook her head, looking over at him and chided his behavior. Sam, you're gonna go blind. Turn some more light on. He looked over at his granddaughter and smilingly winked at her painting eggs and murmured conspiratorially, She don't know I can see better than her. Aloud, he directed his voice toward the kitchen appealingly. All right, sweetie pie, and pointed over to the round varnished wood table standing on a pedestal with a snow white doily adornment on which a crystal chandelier lamp reigned. Excuse me. Let's turn another lamp on for your grandpa, child. Les got up from her task at the table and clicked on the lamp, which immediately filled the room as though the sun had risen. Even at age 7, Les knew her grandparents loved one another dearly, and the bantering and jovial repartee were as much for their granddaughter's amusement as their own. She basked in the warmth of the love they displayed, which illuminated whomever was in the area. She dutifully picked up a half filled sheet of paper that fell to the floor and idly read the few words written there in her grandfather's bold script. If you yellow, you mellow. If you brown, stick around. If you black, stay back. Thank you for listening to another excerpt from my upcoming New York Times bestseller in my head right now. Have a blessed and wonderful and prosperous day.